Welcome to our July Roundtable webinar. It's titled Our New Normal, Building Resiliency During COVID-19. And we are happy to have Rutgers School of Public Health and Public Health Training Center here with us today to present on this very important topic. Before we begin, if we can just have a moment of silence just to honor those that we have lost during this pandemic, and for those that are in that are recovering right now as well. Thank you. My name is Jessica Delgado, and I am a coordinator at Family Connections Adapt Coalition. First, I just want to review some housekeeping information. For the duration of this webinar, it's about an hour and a half. The first hour, we will have a presentation by Phil McCabe from Rutgers. And in the second half hour, we'll have our think tank discussion. All users will be muted during the presentation. However, please feel free to type your questions or comments in the chat box on your screen. After the presentation ends, we will review and answer questions from the chat box. Any unanswered questions will be sent via email along with our PowerPoint presentation. Now, I would like to introduce to you our officers of the Interfaith Committee. Winera Curry, if you're there, if you want to wave. I can't see everybody right now, but.
Good morning.
Good morning. Michael Doherty, he was unable to make it today. He had a situation at the hospital. He's working there, so he was unable to join us this morning. However, we do have Demetria Barnes. If you want to say hello, she's our secretary. And I want to thank everyone for attending today.
So good morning.
Yes, go ahead.
Well, good morning, everyone. As Jessica so eloquently stated, she introduced us. I am Winera. I am the committee chairperson, and I want to say welcome this morning. This is going to be a great topic. I hope we've brought our thinking caps. I hope we brought our personal situations to this presentation, because as we continue to navigate 2020, there's a lot of bumps along the way, and many people, as well as our families and communities, are counting on us to be resilient. So welcome. Great to see so many faces. We're going to have our resiliency presentation in a little bit, and it's going to be followed by Q&A. We are also excited to raffle off 3 prizes to participate. Attendees must have pre-registered by 5 p.m. yesterday, and you must attend the entire presentation. So we kind of got that dangling reward hanging there for everyone that will endure and remain resilient throughout the presentation. So we will offer the first prize, which is a $25 Amazon gift card after the Q&A. So make sure you stay at least for the Q&A. Then we will break into small groups for our think tank session, and then we will reconvene as a large group to process and discuss our shared best practices. So it's going to be a lot of engagement, hopefully a robust discussion. Then there's going to be some brief announcements of upcoming events and happenings of ADAPT. And then it's going to be followed by our last 2 raffles, which are a $50 gift card to a supermarket and a $50 restaurant gift card that is of your choice, hopefully a local small business or restaurant in your area. Lastly, we will then close with the webinar and explain how you can complete the evaluation. So we got a full committed time this morning. We're thinking about an hour 15, hour 30 minutes. So hopefully you set aside that time on your calendar and just, bring all that you can as we get ready to delve into the topic of resiliency.
Thank you, Winera. So today's webinar has been organized by the Interfaith Committee of Family Connections Alcohol and Drug Abuse Prevention Team Coalition. ADAPT is dedicated to reducing substance abuse and improving the overall health of all residents in Essex County. In 2014, ADAPT collaborated with the Essex County Department of Community Health Services and the Essex County Prosecutor's Office to form the Essex County Interfaith Steering Committee. And our mission is to empower the faith-based community leaders here in Essex County and to help them understand and better engage in the issues affecting overall wellness in their communities. Today's presentation is brought to you by the Rutgers Region 2 Public Health Training Center, which endeavors to strengthen the confidence of the current and future public health workforce to address complex and evolving health needs of the public at this time and in the future.
Yes, and so I have the privilege of introducing to you Phil McCabe, who's going to be our presenter today. He has extensive credentials. He is a CSW, CAS, CDVC, and DRCC. He has over 35 years experience in community education as a certified social worker, nationally certified addiction specialist, certified domestic violence counselor, and disaster response crisis counselor. He is a health educator for Rutgers School of Public Health, Center for Public Health Workforce Development, and Region 2 Public Health Training Center. Following the events of 9/11, he provided training for New Jersey's Center for Public Health Preparedness. His focus areas include disaster site recovery and resiliency, psychological first aid, cultural competency, health disparities, and interpersonal violence prevention. He has presented workshops at various local, state, and national events, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and the United Kingdom. So we say thank you, Phil, for joining us this morning and leading us in this discussion, and we look forward to all that you're going to bring forth for us.
Why, thank you very much. Well, good morning, everyone. As was acknowledged, my name is Phil McCabe, and I'm very happy to be here. And on behalf of Rutgers School of Public Health, we are very happy to engage with all the workers like yourself, frontline staff who are definitely involved in providing health and wellness to the community. So you all, to me, identify as public health workers, whether you know that or not. Okay, I just want to close my video. And as it was explained, if you do have a question, my style of presentation is to be very interactive. However, since we moved to a virtual format, it's much different than we're doing a live presentation where I can see hands go up and answer questions. So I don't keep my chat window open. Jessica and others will monitor it and then summarize some questions for us at the end. And I will definitely be available to you if you have any other questions. My email will be included at the end. You'll also receive a copy of the handout presentation, which will help you. And we'll talk a little bit more about what else Rutgers can perhaps do for you as we continue. Okay, so this is what we consider, this is a refresher on resiliency skills. What I often find is many of us have learned about resiliency. We are aware of our own resiliency, and it's very common though during times of stress, we forget some of the very basic skills that we have been taught. So this is really a refresher. It's built as a reminder to review some of the resiliency skills that you are aware of. It is also then going to focus on COVID-19 and the current situation and the challenges that we are faced. This presentation is for you. It's to assist others in your faith-based communities as far as you can share some of these skills with you. And I'll also let you know at the end, if you have a group that you would like me to give this presentation to, that is also a possibility. But again, the presentation, it's for helping you and for helping you to help others. So I'm going to begin by what I like to say, practicing what I preach. If we're going to talk about resiliency, if we're going to talk about self-care, then we each need to remember to take time to take care of ourselves. So I'm just going to ask you right now, we're just going to relax in our seats. It's easier if you put your hands down by your side or in your lap, palms open, and we're just going to do a brief breathing exercise. Now, I included this picture of a Jersey Shore sunrise, actually. The sun comes up in New Jersey on the shore. And just if you focus on this picture, or if you'd rather create an image of your own, something that you find very attractive and pleasant as far as a scene in nature, feel free to do so. And just begin by taking a deep breath in. Just breathe in and breathe out. Let's do that again. Just breathe in and breathe out. Just allow your body to find its natural breathing. I'm going to ask you to gently place your hand on the lower part of your diaphragm. That's just below your rib cage there. And this time as you breathe in, I want you to really feel the air coming into your lungs and your diaphragm expanding. Just keep doing that a few times. Just breathe in and breathe out. As you breathe out, you'll also feel your chest and your lungs start to restrict a little, which is good. That's what you want to have happen. Just breathe in again, breathe in, and breathe out. Just take a moment, focus on the scene on the screen or any screen in your mind, and just think of the beauty and wonder that we have in this world. Just breathe in and breathe out. We are dealing with very difficult times, but we can still be in awe of what has been created for us in the world. Whatever your belief, your conscious contact, your higher power, your God, whatever it may be, just make that conscious contact and give thanks. Thanks for the beauty that you see. And thanks for the skills that you have to help others. And thanks for the people that you know who are there to support you, to help you, and also to help others. Just allow those thoughts to think in. Keep breathing. We're going to take one last deep breath. Exhale. And return. We're going to be here for the presentation now. Okay. The reason why I begin with a breathing exercise, and it's again a very gentle reminder that sometimes when we're feeling stressed, one of the first things we need to do is just remember to keep breathing. And often when we're under stress, because our fight or flight syndrome kicks in, we forget to take those deep breaths, which can actually be very healing breath. And in taking a deep breath, we also need to exhale. And that's where it's really important to sometimes just monitor your breathing by placing your hand on your diaphragm and just make sure you're taking really complete breaths and not just short, shallow breaths. And that's something you can also use with some of the clients and populations. I'm going to refer to clients. I know you may refer to them as parishioners or congregation or community members, but just for efficiency on my end, coming from a university, a medical school, and school of public health, I refer to often people as clients or students. Okay, so this is today's goals, which has already been covered, and it's really about helping you, helping others, and we're also going to share with you a number of resources that we have here in our state and also nationally to help you in the work that you're doing. And as it says, it's for anyone involved in the public health, which includes our faith-based communities and its leaders. So in this current pandemic, we are being challenged. We're being challenged personally and also professionally. Our world has been turned. It continues to turn around. We know that this is really only the beginning. We talk about phase 1. We're talking about when we'll enter into phase 2. We honestly don't know fully exactly when that is, but we do know it's not over. Therefore, this is a good time for us to remember about our resiliency. This is an excellent time for us to increase our capacity to be prepared for what may be coming in the second wave. We don't really know. We are doing fairly well in New Jersey, but as you keep track with the news, there's always going to be ups and downs as far as what we can do and what might be happening. Okay, so let's begin with our definition of resiliency. It comes from the Latin word, okay, and it basically means to spring back or to rebound. You probably remember as a child playing with a slinky. I know in my generation, because I was a child in the 50s and 60s, we didn't have the rainbow colored plastic ones. We had the kind of steel aluminum ones or whatever they were. But it was an amazing toy. And it kind of gave us that awe about what resiliency actually meant without really understanding it was resiliency. Because no matter how you stretch your slinky, or if you are using an industrial spring or a mechanism, you know how it always comes back to its original form. And that is really important. It's about being restored. It's about being renewed. No matter how far it is stressed, no matter how far it is pushed, it is able to come back to its original form. And I remember sometimes with my kinky, I might stretch it really, really far, and it got a little kink in it. And it took a little time to get it to come back to its regular form, but it always did. And that's what's important for us to remember, okay? So it's about the ability to recover and recuperate from a very difficult situation or challenges. We don't often acknowledge our resiliency when we're in times that are not stressful, because that's just our day-to-day living. That's just the things that we do, our daily activities of life and everything that we do to get through the day. But if we're not feeling stressed, then we're not as connected to our resiliency. There are some individuals who may make a practice of rituals to help with their resiliency on a daily basis, such as yoga, meditation. And then there's other things we do, such as diet, nutrition, exercise, rest, sleep. All those things are actually part of our resiliency. So it's not just a one-time, one-shot deal where we go back to resiliency. It's remembering the things that we do that are important for our self-care. Now, this is also not a stress management seminar, because stress management is slightly different. We're going to be talking about stress management, okay? But usually stress management occurs after there's a situation that requires a breakdown of the situation and reviewing it in order to resolve the stress. That is very efficient sometimes with organizations or groups that work together. So we are talking about stress, but this is not a course particularly on stress management, okay? Going back, so we have this resiliency, okay? Some people, and I find sometimes that those of us that are in the helping profession are a little bit more in tune with our resiliency, which is good. I think it's a trait that we share, being groups and individuals that help others. But the reminder is that it was something that still developed in us even before we came into our chosen profession, career path, or what we're doing to assist the community. We learned some of this. So it's not a trait that's actually inherited. It's something that is learned. So it's learning our behaviors, our thoughts, and our actions, and it's aimed at coping specifically for you, taking care of yourself. Yes, you share it with others, but then you're also encouraging them to remember to take care of themselves. So it is not therapy or counseling. It's not pastoral counseling. It's offering support, and it's giving reminders to what individuals can do to help themselves. Helping themselves is a very important component of resiliency, because it diminishes the reliance that you cannot, it creates that self-efficacy that you are able to take care of yourself. And part of taking yourself is asking for help when you need it. So it's not a question of not relying on other people for help when you need it, but it is also not creating a dependency on others to always meet all your emotional needs. So again, whether you look at the glass as being half empty or half full, our resiliency often is shadowed by our perception of how we view a situation. Resiliency can also be broken down into four main categories. There's the mental component, which affects our awareness, our adaptability, our decision-making, and also maintaining a positive attitude or positive thinking. There is the physical, and I mentioned that before, you know, diet, exercise, nutrition, yoga, mindfulness, all those are important. That's all part of our physical strength that we develop. The social connections that we have with family, and I love when I see groups that use the term connection in their organizational structure, because I always think that's really important, that we maintain connections. So connectiveness is really important. Social support is really important. Teamwork is really important. Family is important. How we define family. There's so many different options for family. Our family of origin, our family of choice, our family of birth, our family of love, our family of church, whatever it may be is important to us. And that moves us also into the spirituality, the spiritual connections that we have with our values, our perseverance, our perspective, and our purpose. They all come together as part of our resiliency. So I know you know why resiliency matters, but I just want to remind you that right now with COVID-19, we're dealing with very, very high emotional trauma, which increases our stress, and the stress level is now affecting how we think, act, and feel. Some of us are actually feeling a little respite from the initial onset of COVID, which occurred, of course, when we started first. Some of us have heard about this coming for the past, oh, I'm going to say longer than 6 months, but many of us have been dealing with it for the past 5-6 months. And we know how much stress some of our colleagues, friends, and clients and parishioners have been experiencing, okay? But we also need to recognize that if stress is not addressed and maintained, then it can increase injuries and illness. So the more training we have, the better we become prepared. It's also important because it's about not just taking care of ourselves, as I keep mentioning, it's caring for others. But I want to go back that unfortunately, those of us in the helping professions, because of the nature of the passion that we have for helping others, we sometimes sacrifice ourselves. And that's really unfortunate. It's not about being a martyr, and I respect those that are considered martyrs in our cultures and communities and in our histories. However, if you're on an airplane and they give you that warning and they give you that demonstration and they remind you if an oxygen mask drops, to put it on yourself first before you can help someone else. So again, I just put it out there for you, and I say this with support. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. And when you need help, when you need support, know that it is out there, but your friends and colleagues and coworkers are not going to know the level of stress you're feeling unless you share it with them. So again, the current situation, there is so much, not just stress, but there is a disruption to the normal procedures and rituals that we have done to assist us during difficult times. Hospitals and churches both have been drastically challenged by the inability to maintain contact, direct contact with individuals, be someone sick in the hospital, or be it someone who is is in a spiritual crisis, needs the comfort of coming together in their congregation. And I know that is slowly opening for some, and there are recommendations what can be done, but we do know it's a disruption, and it's not like it used to be. And that's one of the things we have to deal with. That is what's increasing our stress in so many different ways. And it is affecting us. Just like doctors and nurses are not immune to this stress level, I believe those in the faith-based community can also be very severely affected. And I believe that there's probably some similarities that exist between frontline workers and frontline receivers like yourself, that we have difficulty acknowledging sometimes the stress that we're feeling because we worry that we might be burdening somebody else when our role is really mostly to help take care of others. But we know that doctors and law enforcement and nurses are being reminded to make sure they take care of themselves, to make sure they ask for help when they need it. And that's really an important mantra that we can share with you. So again, the difficulties that we're feeling, the additional stress that we have is that we are losing people. The numbers have gone up to the point where we know this is a pandemic. We know it's not going to end quickly. And we've experienced so many loss and grief in our lives. And the whole grieving process has been interrupted. And I know that you know, because of the pastoral care that you give to others, grief, and when we're experiencing grief and we're working through grief, we do gain some insight into, the human spirit, the ability to endure. And there are what some refer to as gifts in working with those who are in the final stages of their death. Some of you may be familiar, of course, with Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, but the point is that we all make that connection sometimes, and it's a very physical connection with the spiritual of someone's transitioning their life. And that in itself has also been disrupted, and that is increasing our stress level. With resiliency, it's the ability to become stronger, healthy, and successful after something bad happens. So even as you have challenged yourself with some of these more difficult situations or have been challenged, you are growing stronger from it, and hopefully it's making you better prepared for what else is coming, what else is going on in our communities. So it's very important, again, going back to what we do as far as taking care of ourselves, putting the mask on ourselves first, learning about resiliency. Resiliency, in a brief summary, is about maintaining a balance between work and life. our personal and our professional. It's important that we maintain balance, whatever our role is as a responder, receiver, and essential workers. Now, we are aware, and this may be something that's affecting you directly or some of the community members that you work with. There's a lot more anger is being expressed right now, which is very, very common and very typical during a disaster situation. There are stages to a disaster. We go through a honeymoon period where everyone is really strongly connected and working together. And then we start taking stock and inventory of, well, what's actually happening here? And of course, we know with our medical community, they realized there wasn't enough PPE, personal protective equipment, for them. And that increased the level of anger. The call to duty and the call to protect and care of self became challenging. So that's just one example. And we've seen it in other ways. I'm sure you have heard from some of your congregation and parishioners, well, why can't we just, come back into the church? Or why can't we get together for a funeral? Or why can't we? And again, it's a challenge for us to be patient with it, be aware of our own frustration with the situation, and at the same time, be mindful of what it is that we need to do. And hopefully that will help us when we have our resiliency. When we're keeping our resiliency in peak, we'll be able to be better support for others, particularly when there's a lot of interpersonal conflicts that may be occurring. We see this also at the end of this presentation. I have a segment on family resiliency and support, because that's another challenge in other disaster situations. And this is where COVID-19 is very different. For those of you that were responders during Hurricane Sandy or the superstorm, or even maybe responded at 9/11, or it went down to Hurricane Katrina, it's a situation that occurs in an area. And when it's over, we go back home to our home state or hometown or whatever we have, or even just our own house, and we feel safer. With COVID-19, we don't have that built-in respite of moving away from the situation like we can sometimes back away from a disaster. And yes, with like Superstorm Sandy, it affected so many of us. But we also knew that when, if our power was restored, it was easier for us to focus and help those who didn't have power, or didn't have food, or didn't have supplies, or needed medication, when we knew that we had our own provisions, or we were in a place where we were able to take care of ourselves. So again, it's just the additional stress that we see here, because none of us are going to be immune to COVID-19 as far as the stressors that we're feeling. We are all in the hot zone. I'm going to share with you a video now that was created by the American Psychological Association. And it's a brief video. I find it very, very helpful to just kind of highlight some of the things that we're discussing today. So, okay, here we go. Jessica or somebody, let me know.
The COVID-19 pandemic is not only a medical crisis, but a psychological one. Along with the collective anxiety, stress, and sadness comes collective loss and sorrow. Loss can shake our senses of self. Many of us will have to cope with the loss of loved ones in the midst of this pandemic. Many are also grieving their sense of safety, of social connection, of financial security. Losing a job, not having a graduation ceremony, not being able to attend a funeral, all are losses to be grieved. What we are experiencing now is a living loss, and as we move forward, people will continue to experience losses we can't yet predict. Psychologists say that in addition to grieving what is now missing from our lives, we may also grieve for the ways in which those losses affect our senses of self and personal identity. If part of who you are is defined by social interactions, what does it mean for you when you are quarantined at home? It helps to name and claim our grief. People often have a vague sense of anxiety or suffering, but putting words to those losses can help them identify ways to move forward. Psychologists recommend journaling to help with this process. Since most of us have never been through anything like this, it can help to explore how you got through another challenging transition, like a divorce or losing your job. How did you heal and recover through that process? You can likely apply some of those strategies to this situation. Social connections are still important. Psychologists encourage people to stay connected with their social support networks through phone calls, text messages, video chat, and social media. For many people, it will take time to recover from their losses. Keep checking in on friends and family members even after this period of isolation ends. Grief is natural, and most people are resilient. Though grief is difficult, it helps to recognize that it's natural and serves a purpose. Grief can help people turn inward and adjust to a new way of life without the people, places, or things they have lost. Research suggests that once a crisis has passed, most people are able to bounce back and move forward with their lives. Know that while grieving, it's normal to fluctuate between moments of sadness and mourning and moments of acceptance or even happiness. It's also important to remember that grief is temporary. The difficult feelings will pass. For more information on how to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic, visit APA's pandemic resource page.
Okay, just take a deep breath in. Just remember to relax. Just breathe in and breathe out. I find that video not only moving, but it really does capture what we are experiencing now. And again, I know I'm not preaching to the choir. It's kind of a funny euphemism to use when you're talking to faith-based communities, but you know what I mean, that you are experiencing this at such a different level. And even for those of you that do specialize in bereavement counseling, the only thing we have similar in our past experience was the early years of the AIDS epidemic, when we lost so many people in a very short amount of time. But even that, we can't really make a full comparison because of the number of deaths that occurred with COVID-19 were much more concentrated, occurring simultaneously at one time. And that is overwhelming, particularly, again, you have training in bereavement and grief counseling, but I don't think any of us can fully grasp what a pandemic would be like until we actually live it. Yes, we learned about the Spanish flu, and we learned about previous pandemics and the Irish famine and other things that have occurred, but we're living it. And that's what's important. This is the grief that we're living. So it's important that we do name it so we can better be able to manage it. I hear sometimes our leaders, political leaders, refer to the new normal. My position is it's not normal, okay? And we need to be honest with ourselves. It's probably not going to ever be normal again, because we can't unlive what we're living now. We can't undo the experiences that we're feeling right now, the issues that we are dealing with, and it's not going to, our resiliency will come in, yes, but it's not going to be like it ever was before. We can't go through this without feeling unchanged. And again, I believe that part of your role in the care that you provide is helping the community with all the changes that are happening to also maintain their resiliency, their endurance. And I would add their spirituality, because I know that I believe that is important. I know sometimes as a health professional, I don't go into that category because, again, talking to medical professionals, we often don't talk about spirituality, although there are many who do. But I'm just saying, but that is really the focus that you provide. And I know you do provide physical assistance with food banks and sheltering and other things that you provide. But really the spiritual care kind of falls into your area. And again, as a public health professional who often deals with disease and violence prevention, I know how important that is. So I just want to honor you for the work that you are doing. So again, we talk about the grief, okay? I like to refer to David Kessler. Now, David Kessler was actually a student who studied with Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. He has his own website called grief.com. He actually maintains a Facebook group to help people deal with grief, okay? Here's 2 quotes from him, okay? And again, I don't read from the slides fully because that can be very annoying, as I know as a participant. But just that last quote, the loss of normalcy, the fear of economic toll, the loss of connection, this is hitting us and we're grieving collectively. We're not used to this kind of collective grief in the air. So again, it's just, to me, that's very validating when we start feeling and thinking. And I hear this mostly, more commonly, from first responders who are in the line of duty, such as police, fire, EMTs, EMSs. We heard this a lot post 9/11. They often feel like they're going crazy. And what I say to them is, no, you're not going crazy, because A, you have the thought that there is something wrong. With many people with severe and persistent mental illness, I don't like using the term crazy, but I think you know subjectively what that means. They're not aware of how their thoughts and their actions may be actually bizarre. So they don't know but you're aware of it and you're thinking that you're going crazy, to me tells me that you're not going crazy. What you're having is a normal reaction to an abnormal situation. And the situation we're dealing with is this collective grief, which is very abnormal. We have all dealt with grief in our personal lives and in our professional lives, but we've never have dealt with the grief to this level. And it's not just the lives that we have lost, but also the other tolls that are taking. Okay. And I like how David has kind of captured this, because he outlined, now again, some people have criticized Dr. Kubler-Ross. She never said that the stages were linear. And I'm not here to teach on that, her methods or anything else, her model. I'm just here to kind of frame for you what David Kessler has identified for us, as he related it to the COVID-19 situation. Initially, we saw that denial of this virus won't affect us. And we are still hearing that from other states in the US and other countries. The anger, you're making me stay home and taking away my activities. The bargaining, okay, well, I'm going to do this, but only for 2 weeks, and then everything's going to be okay. And then the sadness, I don't know even when this is going to end. Is it always going to be like this? And then the acceptance, this is happening, I must figure it out, and I must know how to proceed, okay? So we often learn about acceptance, and we find control in acceptance, the things that you can do. I can wash my hands. I can keep a safe distance. I can learn how to work virtually. I can become accustomed to wearing a mask when I need to. These are the things that we need to recognize that we do have power over, and the power we have is that we can change the situation by employing the recommendations that are given to us. And I also add, as a public health professional, making sure the recommendations are coming from medically sound professionals. That's important. Okay. So again, to kind of summarize what I was leading up to, Viktor Frankl reminds us that what we are feeling right now, and this is something that he has been talking about in all his, he's a specialist in trauma resiliency, and we are acknowledging this is an abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation, so it's normal behavior. Okay, just let that sink in. This is a normal reaction. It's an abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation, or a normal reaction to an abnormal situation is how I like to say it. So our behavior is normal. Whatever we are feeling, thinking, and doing, it's a normal reaction. If we are uncomfortable with our thoughts and our feelings, our behavior, then yes, we can work on changing them. But initially, we at least need to own them and say, this is what I'm feeling. I'm feeling very angry right now. I'm very short-tempered. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I had a day yesterday. I had 3 different projects, all had deadlines, and then someone threw me a curve and said, "Oh, can you take care of this?" And I'm like, "No, I have these deadlines that have to be met, and your situation will just have to wait." I wasn't rude to the person, but I know my response was rather brief, just a very quick no. But I'm also reminded, and this I think is very helpful, no is a complete answer. And sometimes we need to be reminded of that when you say no to someone, sometimes that's all you really can say. You don't have to go into a long-winded situation or explanation of why you need to say no. Now, of course, courtesy comes in and we say, okay, well, let me just let you know if I can get back to it, or if I can do it tomorrow or do it later. But then sometimes it's just, no, that's not something I can do, or no, I think you better find someone else for the situation. And if possible, we can say, no, I might be able to help you to find someone else, but I know I can't take that on. But again, no in itself is a complete answer. And I think sometimes, again, first responders, first receivers, people like yourself, we are often taught that we should not be saying no. We should always be there with open arms, open hands, open minds, open hearts to everyone. Philosophically, that sounds good. But on a true level, we need to sometimes just remember, as we're taking care of ourselves, we need to close down some of those others to allow ourselves to replenish. Okay, so going back to the disaster situation, I talked about how we go through stress reactions. Okay, now the reactions to stress are actually measured. They can be mild, they can be moderate, and they can be severe. There's a variety of symptoms that we feel. We are not often going to feel all these symptoms, but we may feel some of them, okay? I talked to myself about yesterday. My initial reaction is often not to feel sadness. I often feel frustration first. And then my frustration triggers a moment of being angry about the situation. And then I have to regroup and kind of collect my thoughts and everything so I don't respond from an angry position. but that's me. You know what happens with you. Do you go through thoughts of negativity, of sadness, of depression, flashbacks? Do you get triggered into other thoughts of situations? But whatever those situations are, those symptoms are, we sometimes feel them just for a few hours. Like I said, for me yesterday was, like 20 minutes at my computer getting a little frustrated. And then eventually I looked at my time schedule and said, okay, this is what I need to do first. This is what I'll do second. And that's the person I'm saying, no, I can't do anything for you today. Okay. Again, so it can last it's mild and just lasts for a few hours or a few days. Sometimes it's moderate. It's going to last for several weeks and it's going to be much more intense. Okay. And then sometimes it's more severe. When it goes into that, 7, 8, 9, 10 category where it's more severe, which means that they're very intense and they're lasting for over a month, we often do need to seek professional care. I include you in your pastoral counseling duties and faith-based communities as part of that professional assistance that is offered. And I know some of you have much more higher level of training in that area. So it's not to critique anyone, but it's also to recognize know the limitations of your work. If you do have experience working with very, very severe trauma response, I know many in the faith community also work on our Medical Reserve Corps or our civilian response teams. So, you may already be doing this, but if not, it's okay to say the best thing I can do is referring you to somebody else. Okay. So again, but I do know that for many, many individuals, they are not going to seek help from a mental health professional because in their culture, in their community, there just might be too much stigma attached to that. And then we also have people that financially. So again, your role as providing not just spiritual assistance, but also physical and mental assistance is also important. But again, we each need to remember to stay in our lane and do what we can and recognize the limitations of what we can do when helping others. Okay. So just going back, so we're talking about this very abnormal situation to a normal reaction to an abnormal event. We all can react differently. Now, the important thing about resiliency, we hear a lot about PTSD, is we really want to reduce the impact of traumatic events so we can avoid severe depression, anxiety, or PTSD. PTSD is something that I know in previous generations, it was never really discussed. I mean, those of us that were lived through a war, beginning, for me, it was beginning with the Vietnam crisis. We knew about soldiers that were returning with PTSD, but it was often thought that it was only more military personnel who experienced extreme levels of stress and traumatic situations for having PTSD. And that has, of course, changed. We know that survivors of violence, of homicide, of sexual assault can also have PTSD. Loss and grief can trigger a post-traumatic stress. But it's also sometimes people are using it as a self-diagnose. I have a niece as a teenager. She could run out of hair conditioner and she'd tell her mom, I'm having PTSD. There's no hair conditioner. Now, I know that's not an indicator of post-traumatic stress disorder. It was more a teenager being upset that her hair wasn't going to come out the way she wanted before she went to school. But again, we don't want to minimize that PTSD is real. It does occur, but there are things that we can hopefully and helpfully do to help others. So whatever the traumatic situation is that they are dealing with, it doesn't mean they will develop into having a post-traumatic stress disorder. Experiencing trauma and having PTSD are two different things. We know that also a little anxiety can be helpful because when we go through a traumatic or anxiety-producing experience and we come through it or we work through it, we have a sense of accomplishments. We say, wow, I just dealt with that. That was very, very difficult. And it's not just singing your own praise. It's kind of like doing hey, look at me. I did it. I didn't think I could. And here I am. I went through it. I got through it. And that helps us. That gives us our strength. The other thing that we do is by sharing with others, okay, when we are feeling some of this anxiety, it helps us to kind of keep things in perspective. You ever have a conversation with somebody and you're telling them what you think is you're going to be, oh my God, I'm da-da-da-da, and you're talking about yourself and you're going on, and they go, wow, you too? Oh my God, I've been feeling the same thing. I think it's crazy right now what's going on, and you're like, oh, you too? And you both laugh at it because again, behind that, we think, oh, we shouldn't be feeling this. That's our criticism of ourselves. And then we start realizing yeah, I'm not the only one. We're all, and again, so having lightness, having laughter, having humor can also be supportive. Laughter right now is relief for all of us. So again, let's go back to managing that that stress. And we're talking about in your personal life and also in your professional life, because both of them need to be managed. Some individuals are very good managing stress in their professional life or their work life, but not always applying it to their home life. I have a colleague, a wonderful psychologist. She has a lot of training on stress, and she deals with traumatic situations and crisis and people that have been abused, and I mean, she's very, very skilled, very, very talented, very compassionate, a lot of empathy. She was having one of those really difficult days. She helped meet the needs of so many people. She came home and her teenage son is laying on the couch playing his video games, and he goes, "Mom, what's for dinner?" And her response was, "Oh, bug off." Now, she was English, so it really fit well to hear her say that. She actually said, I probably might have even used the F word at the time. I'm not going to use that today. But the point is, like, she recognized as much as she was balancing her professional life, she came home and she carried something into her personal life. And then she jokingly, and this is how she tells the story to others that she was training. She goes, so here I am, a world respected trauma specialist who goes around the world teaching. I was very fortunate to take a class with her, teaching about trauma. And a 16-year-old son, the person I love, asks me what's for dinner, and I tell him to go F off, So she said, I just have to remind myself that on a daily basis, I need to find that balance between my personal and my professional, and I can be triggered into having a stress reaction more severe at any particular time. The important thing is that remember that we can set priorities, we can take control of the situation, we can remember to use relaxation techniques and to figure out what's important. So there are things you can do to take a break. I'm sorry, to take care of yourself. One thing that I personally emphasize, and again, I honestly practice it myself, I take a break from the news and the social media. I don't need to hear from every governor in the US what their opinion is of what's happening in our country. Yes, I appreciate that governors are working together and talking to each other. I appreciate all the different medical doctors and professionals and law enforcement and everybody else that's involved. I don't need to hear from everyone every day. So I really limit how much time I spend watching the news and getting updates. Now, I'm fortunate because working for Rutgers University in the School of Public Health, we have others that will send us brief announcements just telling us, by the way, there was a new announcement from CDC or the Attorney General, or this is what the president of the university has now. So yes, I do get updated. I don't have, but I focus on what is important to me and what is going to affect me directly. Yes, I have family that lives in Florida. I am very concerned about what's happening in Florida. I share with them, but I don't have control over the situation in Florida. I can only tell my siblings what we've learned here in New Jersey, and they're respectful and they're mindful and they're cautious. But that's as far as I can go. So taking a break from things that can be very, very upsetting. And I know, just like in other traumatic and disaster situations, it's very natural that we start thinking about others. We survive something and then we start thinking about what about someone else, okay? So we need to find a balance even with that. Taking care of our body is important. Doing those deep breathing exercise, stretching, meditation, eating healthy, balanced meals, exercise. And I know that even nutrition, because we do have individuals in our communities that have always lived in food deserts where they don't have access to fresh produce or fresh vegetables or other things that they need. But we are helping them. That's part of what we're doing. And yet, because of, if we're not going to the stores as much, we're using canned foods and processed foods, and that's going to affect our diet. I know for myself, I don't feel well when I'm not getting fresh produce and vegetables and fruit and everything. So I try to do what I can. So again, plenty of rest, avoiding alcohol and drugs, taking time to unwind, remembering to do some of the activities you enjoy that are important to you, and then also connecting with others. It's unfortunate that we started using this term social distancing when really what we need and what we really need to be doing is physical distancing. We keep a physical distance, we still need to stay connected. So I'm going to start summarizing some of the action steps that we like to encourage. We have the personal actions. Again, Making choices for you, what's right for you, setting limits, finding where you find your comfort. What is your comfort zone? Where do you go for your comfort? Music. I'm a person who I can put on a song and it can definitely change my mood. There are certain songs that I listen to that are part of a ritual for me. I have just songs that kind of replenish my soul. There are certain songs that energize me. I can even put on a song and dance in my living room. But the point is, like, that's for me. It may not work for you. There's other ways you can find balance. Okay. But it's important that we remember to take those actions, not just to think about it, but to also do it. So where was I going back? Okay. So again, we learn how to take care of ourselves. Okay. I find many times that when we do have that level of stress, be it frustration, anger, whatever builds up, it's like a tea kettle. The steam needs to come out. Okay. And we sometimes are really concerned about, oh, I can't blow off that steam. Well, I'm not saying you blow it off with everyone you have contact with, and hopefully you're not, but you do have someone you can trust. Do have someone that you can just kind of share it with. I remember years ago I used to work when I was working in an alcohol and drug treatment program, and it can be very, very frustrating sometimes. And yes, even today with the clients that I work with, I still do have some clinical interaction, even though I am primarily an educator. Uh, there's a loss of a life to an overdose. You know, I could be riding home from the university and I'm on Route 18 and I just roll the windows down and I just scream. I just let it out. I just, just allow myself to yell. I would not go into my office and start yelling or screaming, but it just physically, it helps me to release something. I know other people, vigorous exercise and moan, that kind of grunt screaming that they do when they're exercising can really be very, very, very stress reducing for them. So whatever it is, taking the time to do that, and sometimes just blowing it off with a person is important. The other things that, again, these are reminders. You are familiar with these, but we need to be reminded. But I think most importantly is remember that asking for help is a sign of strength, not of weakness. And we all need help at some point in our lives. So the taking care of yourself, the body relaxation, avoiding triggers, using buffers between the mental and physical health, okay? Anything we can do to help ourselves slow down is also going to allow us to respond more effectively. Taking a break, a 10-minute break from getting up from your computer, once every hour is important. For those of us that are now working full time at home and doing everything we have to do on the computer, not having personal interaction with others as often as we would enjoy, we need to remember to close the screen, get up, walk around, stretch a little bit. Anything that we do to give us a little respite is going to be important. Okay. This is, and there's I have a few lists here. I'm not going to read them. Like I said, I myself hate when I get into that habit of just reading my slides word for word. But what you're seeing here are several different lists that have been compiled. And just think about the similarities. The reason why I use more than one list is this might have an impact on you. Maybe the previous screen had an impact on you. Maybe the next screen will have an. Whatever it is, take what you need and leave the rest. Okay? So this is one outline of 7 self-care tips that are recommended. Many times it is helpful to develop our own gratitude. Okay. And this is something I have used many times with first responders, particularly law enforcement, and also nurses and doctors. When you leave for work in the morning, think about what you hold in your heart and carry that with you throughout the day. There were many police officers that were working at Ground Zero, and when I say responders, was police, fire, EMTs, and also civilians, pastoral counselors who were there on site. Many of them started carrying little just pictures, in their shirt pocket or even in their hat and in their helmets. When they took a break and they took their helmet or the hat off and they just had a picture to look at of someone that they loved and cared about and someone that cared about them, it gave them that moment of reflection. So we carry that in our heart, and that's important to help us get through the day. And at the end of the day, we can be thankful and appreciative for that person, those emotions that we have, what we do have in our heart, and it gives us the strength to, again, hopefully have a restful night and begin the next day as we begin the process all over again. But we have to do it on a daily basis. Gratitude and attitude is very important. Again, going back to the list is very important, okay? The thing that's added to this list is the daily debriefing. And I think that we forget about that sometimes in situations like this. In a crisis situation where it's a one-time event, it's very common that we have a debriefing after the event is over. What we're dealing with now is an ongoing event, so we do need to take time to, and I know that your group, because by checking in with your meetings and your think tanks is another way of actually having that debriefing. But you also need to be reminded on a daily basis to allow yourself to debrief from the activities and the situation. Now, it is important to also recognize what's not going to help, the things that don't help, okay? It's not uncommon during situations like this for individuals to sometimes look to, having an alcoholic beverage, sometimes using drugs to relax. For someone, and I know this is, your group, we also focus on those individuals with substance abuse. So of course, we're not encouraging anyone to resume using substances, although some might. But there's also the possibility that individuals who previously have not had a problem with alcohol and drugs start relying on it more often. So we really want to be mindful of either decreasing our use of alcohol and drugs and or practicing a more regulated moderation, okay? And just be reminding a couple individuals to be aware of, well, it's nice to go home and if you tell me it's nice to go home and relax and open up a bottle of wine and have a few glasses with your companion and talk about the day, but are you doing that every day? And again, that may be the beginning of a problem or indicate that there's the alcohol itself may not be the problem, but the major problem is that you're not utilizing other coping skills. And if you don't utilize other coping skills, then the alcohol becomes the first one that you reach for. And that can then definitely develop into a problem. But there are other things also, okay? And again, another thing that is very, very stressful in any crisis situation is when we start playing the blame game. Now, I will be the first to admit that there are certain individuals I hold more accountable for the current situation. However, if I stay focused on blaming others, I'm spending too much energy in that pursuit and not taking the energy I need to apply to myself. So I just have learned to be rather dismissive and say, yes, it's very unfortunate that that's what's happening. However, what I do know are these are the things that I can do. Just like I said, I can shut off the news and I don't want to hear from certain people. I know I want to go to the medical professionals. When that's for me, I'm saying you do what's right for you. But again, spending too much time with that blaming and talking about what isn't being done by certain individuals or certain groups or different organizations. And that could be, on the national level. It can also be on a community level. It can be right in your own individual group. Oh, why isn't so-and-so doing what he or she said they were going to do? They said they would be here for this meeting. They said they would get us this article, whatever. They didn't. We needed them for this discussion. They're not here. You know what? Okay, accept it and move on. You have to. You can't spend all that time blaming. And that is one of the major pitfalls that we often experience when we're under stress is we look to blame. And again, I'm going back and saying, yes, sometimes there are legitimately people that might be held accountable that we do have a sense of blame for. But when we start playing the blame game, it's only in time that then we also start blaming ourselves, or we open ourselves to being blamed by others. And if we don't develop that resiliency to say, okay, yes, that's what happened. That's unfortunate. This is what we need to do now. Then we are shifting away from blame into action. And action is, again, going back to what helps. Blame isn't going to help. Okay. There's reasons why people avoid social supports. I think you probably, with your congregations and groups and people that are coming to food banks or seeking assistance, you know how difficult it is when we need to actually have support. That includes physical support. And that includes also for social support. And what we experience now, there's some people that really don't know where to go for social support. And we want to be able to offer them a variety of resources. Many people often feel that they don't seek support because they're afraid they're going to be burdening someone else. So there are things that we do when we're seeking social support. This is for you. This is for others that you're working with. Deciding who to talk to, when to talk to them, and knowing when it's the right time is really important. focusing your conversation is important. And yes, sometimes free-flowing conversations can also be beneficial. But if you really have a situation that is stressful for you, it is often good to let the person know, hey, listen, I need to talk about A, and that's really why I'm calling you, or that's really why I'm asking to meet with you. Do you have time to do that now? As opposed to going in, hey, how is the weather? How's the family? How's life? I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Oh, by the way, this is really bothering me. And the person's like, okay, we just spent 20 minutes talking and you didn't get to the point, and now I don't have any more time to give you. So teaching, and I think this also, not just for ourselves, but also the individuals we're working with. It's a very good skill. Yes, we can be empathetic in our listening, have empathetic listening, but sometimes we have to lead with, as we're getting into this, I just need to know right off the bat, is there something that is really concerning you right now that I can help you with? Why don't you put that out there first? We might not address it right now. We can get back to it, but just get that off your mind right now so we know where you are and I can tell you where I am, and our talking is going to be helpful. So there's different ways we use that social support. Again, the worst that we do is when we keep silent and we worry about being a burden. We assume that others don't want to listen, or we wait till we're so stressed that really we're not going to get any benefit from getting help from others. And then just a reminder, we have to laugh sometimes. There's some funny things that are happening right now, and laughter is great medicine. Laughter can help heal the heart, and that's important. Again, going back to the social distancing, and I have continually tried to refer to it as physical distancing. It's important that we educate people. Keeping a physical distance does not mean they have to be socially isolated. So again, reaching out to others, there's different ways we can reach out to others. And of course, now I think you, like many others, were much more comfortable with the Zoom and the FaceTime than we were before. I know back in February and March, and April, it was very difficult to get everybody online, everybody on board. You were getting a lot of interruptions. People didn't know how to handle the platform. So we're doing better. And we need to continue to do that, okay? We need to anticipate. And I know that there are many groups that are now having hybrid meetings where some individuals are coming together, say to a church, and they're meeting as a small group. And the church is also still offering online, distant, Zooming for parishioners or congregation members who can't come in. Or if we're going to do it outside now, and as the weather changes, we can't always be, whatever it is, we have to make those modifications, that adapting, okay? So there's different ways that we get connected, okay? And we need to be mindful to maintain that. Maintaining connectedness, I think, is really important. I say several things are really important, but that, again, for me, I know if I'm not feeling by nature, and people find this hard to believe because I do a lot of public speaking. I can speak in front of 500 people in an auditorium, but I kind of really like spending time by myself. So I by my nature, am an isolator, So I have to remind myself that, hey, I still need to get on the phone and talk to someone. I do need to say, hey, I haven't seen anybody in a week or so. I haven't been out of my house. Maybe I could meet you in the park and we can, sit on a bench across from each other and just have a little conversation. Okay, so again, maintaining connectedness is important. Okay, now, as I said, we're going to be winding down here. I'm sorry I haven't been paying attention to the time, but parenting and caregivers have other considerations. This may be relevant for you, and if not, well, again, we'll go back to our group discussion in a few minutes. But these are the things for the parents and caregivers and those that take care of families. We need to be mindful that, yes, children are being affected. Children are feeling stress, and we don't always recognize what that stress is like for a young person. We can recognize it in ourselves. For children, there's often outbursts. I mean, we know, I'm not a parent, but I know with my siblings, children have temper tantrums sometimes. Many times it's out of frustration. So anyway, helping children to feel better becomes an important part of our resiliency. And as workers, we have concern for our families, and the families also have concern for us, for our frontline workers and frontline receivers. Family members can be very concerned when that you're going out and perhaps having contact with others outside the immediate family. That can produce more stress for them. So letting them know what you're doing to protect yourself and keep yourself safe is also important. So acknowledging the child's fear and reminding them that what you're doing it in a safe way. Okay. And then children are going to have questions about the pandemic, okay? And sometimes the news they're hearing can be very, very frightening. Many young children are now experiencing where many of their friends have already lost parents or grandparents, or they themselves have lost parents or grandparents, or neighbors, or others in the family system. And it brings up a very, very common reaction. If my friend Joey lost their father, is my father going to get sick? Is my father going to, so again, we need to remind them of what we are doing to stay safe. And we're teaching them what they can do to stay safe: hand washing, staying home, wearing masks, preparing children for how to wear masks when they have to, if they do go back to their school system and are required to practice, the universal precautions and the mask wearing. They need to practice that before the day starts where they're actually required to go into, if they are going back into school, to wear a mask. Again, these are just things that we can better prepare children and also understand what needs to be done. And it's always maintaining it as what we consider to be age appropriate, but the appropriate emotional level of the children that you have in your own family. So it's not just saying, oh, at age 5 or 10, you can say this. You know what your 5-year-old and what your 10-year-old can handle, and also what your 15-year-old is experiencing. Okay. Recognizing the children's feelings, understand their concern, know they're feeling with disappointment, they're dealing with it, you're disappointed, and sharing that with them. Yes, this is very disappointing to me too. I really wish we could do some of the things we normally do, but this year we can't do that. But helping them to stay connected is also important. Connected to others, connected to people that they love and care about. And again, I go back to, for those of you that are receivers and responders and frontline workers, or if you're going out of the house, there's stress for those parents that are working from home and also responsible for childcare and schooling throughout the day. That right there is a lot. But then there are others that are doing that, preparing meals, and then also going to work and doing their jobs. And that can bring up a certain level of stress for the children also, knowing that you just told them that they're safest when they stay home, and now you're leaving. So again, reminding the child about what you're doing to do your job professionally, efficiently, and safely is very, very important. Maintaining contact with them, even if you are out of the house for an extended period of time, letting them know you're going to call them, check in with them, see how they're doing, tell them how your day's going, and keep the focus on their activities of daily living. There's an excellent resource that we recommend for children. I know many of you are familiar with Sesame Street. I think, we love the characters, we love the videos and everything. But you may not know, this is not just your typical Sesame Street episodes. They have a particular website called Caring for Each Other, and it's Sesame Workshop Response to COVID-19. So you go to sesamestreet.org/caring, and there's a number of videos that you can watch with children to help them have a better understanding of what is happening during the pandemic, and also how they can help each other. But also remembering that as we are encouraging the physical distance, we can still offer safely, particularly with immediate family members, the hugs, the love, and everything else that is important. Okay. I mentioned, the difference between what your 5-year-old and your 15-year-old is dealing with, but let's not remember that a 15-year-old, as much as sometimes they want to believe they're almost an adult, they truly are not. And we need to recognize that the needs of a teenager are going to be different than the needs of a younger child. And sometimes teenagers are also given an additional burden because they are taking the role of some of the adults in the house that are required to do other things. And that can be very stressful and resentful for them. So helping them to kind of stick to a schedule. Yes, if they have more increase in, at one time it was schoolwork, but now we're talking about maybe like household responsibilities. They also need to take a break from that, just like you need to take a break from it. So allowing downtime is very important. Allowing a time to transition from other household activities that they might be required to do now to assist you, but they also need to transition into when it's their own time, and allowing them to have their own privacy is really important. Again, someone who specializes in violence prevention, we know that there are online predators. I'm not just saying don't have any caution, but if you know your child, you know that they are, safe when they're online, they need sometimes to just have that kind of quiet, reserved time for themselves and their friends to get together, to laugh, joke, and tease each other safely, jokingly, not bullying or anything, but they need that time with their friends, and that's important, particularly for those that are not having any social interaction at this point. Okay, so this is pretty much the end of the presentation. I'm just going to highlight some of the resources that we have. Now, New Jersey has a mental health crisis line that you can call. And the New Jersey, I believe, the counselors are available from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. They can also coordinate with you to get ongoing counseling if you need it.
Okay, you can hear me. I think we may have lost Phil's voice for right now. Okay. All right. Well, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat box. And then what we will do, because we are pressed for time, we will get any of the questions that you have there and we'll send it through email. We'll answer them through email. So feel free to do it in the chat, but we're going to go to our next portion. So we have our, thank you, Phil, for that wonderful presentation. All right, so moving on to our think tank small group discussion. Gunera, I'm going to pass it on to you.
Okay, all right. Congratulations again, Richard. Hope you're excited. I know Amazon presented itself as a lifeline during much of COVID. So hopefully you'll find some personal benefit out of receiving that $25 gift card. So now it's time for us to move to our think tank small group discussion segment. This is an opportunity for us to reflect upon what Mr. McCabe presented to us on resiliency and identify ways you can apply what you've learned. And for those who are with us from previous roundtables, this is one of our standard segments to help us take what was learned and make it practical and applicable in our specific and unique situations. So here are the instructions. You will randomly be assigned to a breakout room for 10 minutes. A facilitator has been assigned for each small group. They have been pre-selected. So when you go in, be sure to remember which group you are in. The facilitator will introduce themselves. They will guide the participants to discuss and answer the think tank questions. Once you enter, the facilitator will also help you identify who's going to be recorder and who's going to be the speaker, who's going to report back out once the notes of the discussion are and provide a summary to the large group. So we're going to go into the small group and then we're going to regroup and allow what was discussed, the highlighted points, to kind of bubble up into a larger group discussion. So the charge is to discuss the following. As a result of this webinar, identify 2 to 3 individual goals that you would like to implement. As time permits, also identify 2 to 3 organizational goals that you would like to implement in your faith-based group or your organization. In considering all of this, think about what will be helpful for your community and organization as you consider what will be some goals you would like to set. We are, as Jessica acknowledged, kind of time constrained. So you may want to pick which one you identify with the most so that you can ensure that everyone participates in the robust discussion. When we return to the large group, the speaker, who is identified, hopefully, as you first go into your group, will share a summary of the small group discussion. Are there any questions?
Gunera, I just want to emphasize group 1, Demetricia Barnes group. Group 2, Elizabeth Marquez. Group 3, Paula Blanton. Group 4, Julia Revoredo. Group 5, Christine Bizup. And Group 6, Kelvin Robertson.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that. So those are your groups, 1 through 6. The leaders have been identified. They'll introduce themselves again. And again, the questions are around what did you learn today and how will you implement it individually or organizationally? Okay, so Jessica is going to release you into the groups. It is now 11:26. We will reconvene probably as close to 11:40 as possible. That sounds like a couple more minutes than 10, but we know it takes a little while to settle into your groups. So happy discussion, everyone. Look forward to hearing all of your goals when you get back. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Are we still filtering through, Joel, or is everyone back?
We're back.
Everyone's back now. I was saying that it looked like there were two groups that were in deep conversation because they had to be forced out of the room.
Yeah, we did. We
Might
had
have been
3
us.
seconds. 3 seconds. We had 3 seconds left. So,
So I'll
but
mute myself back.
okay. So robust discussion certainly in my group. So if we don't mind, I'm gonna adhere to the order that was provided. So group number 1 was Demetricia's group. Whoever the spokesperson is, if you can unmute yourself and report out what was organizational or individual, some of the goals or even experiences, or honestly, some of the still challenges that exist.
Okay. So I did the reporting for my group. We had a very vibrant discussion. So individual goals were to name and claim your grief to better understand, honor, and address your emotions, to prioritize self-care, appreciate each experience of each day, to embrace the new norms that are beyond our understanding, maintaining and finding that inner light, and making the darkness conscious of the light. And then for our organizational goals, we discussed the school and church reopening, and we were reminded to role model expectations, to embrace virtual experiences, and to follow the protocols given by the CDC, and then to engage others, to use a question and answer format, include Google Forms and surveys and visual aids so that you can engage all types of learners. And then John Rogers shared a quote with us, and he reminded us that laughter is the shortest distance between two people.
Wow. Well, good thing we didn't give y'all 30 minutes because I think y'all would have just been able to present all over again. Wow. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, group number 1. That was
a gem. I'll just say, I'm sorry to cut in, but that was a gem from one of our Platinum Coalition members here, Mr. John Rogers.
All right,
He's been with us since day 1.
Right, John.
Thank you for putting him in my group.
Awesome. Thank you, group 1. A lot of nuggets there. So group number 2 was facilitated by Elizabeth. Do we have someone reporting out from there? Or is it you, Elizabeth?
Yeah, it's me. Yeah, hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
One of our personal goals that we discussed was, we had a great conversation as well. One was somebody was going to give the information about sleep due to one of their family members having issues with sleep. Another one was to have physical contact with others, and to keep that physical contact is important. One of a journal writing, to write down your thoughts and how you feel so that you could see how life is going. Having gratitude, taking a break from social media and reflecting on different things, and having sorry, the slide sent, sorry, that was totally off. And something for the organization was that they spoke about, having parents and students going back to school and having plans, and some of the information that was given to us so that we could take back to parents and students so that they can embrace the new normal with the schooling and virtual learning. And another one was the acknowledging the fact that people are going through grief, and the resources that we could give to the community about trauma and the grief that everybody's going through during these difficult times.
Yeah. Awesome. Wow. A lot of more nuggets. Thank you, Liz, and your group. Thank you for that great discussion. Group number 3, facilitated by Paula. Is Paula or someone going to report out from that group?
Yes. So we said, Mr. Hernandez said he wants to take some time off, vacation, some mental vacation. He's going to try to meditate a little more and also be off social media. He likes to listen to music, so he's going to listen to music more and read more. And his organization goals is to connect with the group and keep people informed as much as possible with COVID, with all this misinformation, and he wants to make sure he gives the proper information to everyone, and he wants also to learn himself as much as possible. Then we have Joyce. She has been overwhelmed working from home, and it has been difficult to manage her time properly because the personal stuff gets in between the working from home, and she tends to see herself working during her lunch. So she just wants to try to manage her schedule a little bit. One of the things that she's doing with her church, she's doing a virtual coffee hour, and also, and they're enjoying that very much, and also doing a family night on the lawn with a church group. And instead of singing, something that's really interesting that they're doing, and it's actually more inclusive, they're using sign language. So they're teaching their participants sign language so they can do their songs using sign language. Then we have Makita. She also wants to reach out more to people, make sure that people know that she's there for them and she's there to support them, as people may feel a little more separated. And that's like, personally, I don't like the term social distancing. I prefer the term physical distancing, because when you say social distancing, you kind of are saying that you don't want to be social. And that's definitely not the point. We are here all physical distancing, but we are all socially connected. And something else I see, she's trying to find some time for herself to actually connect with herself and tune out from the world so she can relax. And then Paula said she wants also to relax and find herself and she's finding herself to be more spiritual. She's praying more in the morning. And her organizational goal is to give hope to young people. I also said that here at the Community Food Bank, as an organizational goal, we are trying to make sure that the organizations, not only just individuals, we are provide them with free services as much as we can, so they can themselves support their community. And that's all that we had for Group 3.
Oh, Group 3 had a lot. Thank you, Armando. Appreciate that. Thank you, Paula, for facilitating that group. Appreciate all of that. I do believe we are recording this, so perhaps we can see this documented. I always make these statements, not understanding the full context of what can happen, but perhaps we can get something that consolidates all that's being shared today. So group number 4, we have Julia's group. Is someone prepared to report out from group number 4? Or is Julia available? If Candace is here.
Hello. On an individual level, we spoke about self-care, the importance of self-care, because of course we all know you can't pour from an empty cup. So you have to build yourself up mentally, spiritually first before you can help others. So in this time where you know, there's so much going on in the world, so much going on in our communities, you know, being able to take time out for yourself so that you can feel uplifted, so that you can feel as though you're giving your best self to each other before you can, you know, be productive. So we focused on that. We also focused on working from home and maybe not having a schedule to follow, and, you know, being home, having kids, having your husband or maybe other family members, how things can become a little chaotic. So having a space for yourself, as well as setting that schedule so that you can have that follow through before the day is done, and you can also, you know, be able to accomplish all the goals that you set for yourself. On an organizational level, we spoke about, you know, a lot of the changes that are taking place throughout the agencies, whether it's at schools, faith-based organizations and things like that, and how we're able to still do the work that we're doing in the community, still being resourceful, you know, and not saying that, okay, because of COVID, there's nothing really that we can do. So, you know, whether it's doing virtual classes, sending them correspondence through email or text or something like that, just to make them know that we didn't forget about them. So those are some of the things we spoke about in our group.
Awesome. Thank you, Candace. Good group conversation there. I can attest to that. And so we're going to move ahead with group facilitated by Christine, group number 5. I'm not sure if Christine or someone else is reporting out.
Hi, Christine.
Hi, Christine.
So for individual goals, we had said more physical activities such as yoga, hiking, or exercising, taking time for ourselves, such as meditating or just unwinding, eating better, focusing on wellness, checking in with our family and loved ones, and writing, or if we're on social media, going ahead and taking a look at it from a positive aspect, because there's a lot on social media right now that is on the negative side, especially with everything that's going on. And now from an organizational for organizational goals, we were saying having team meetings and checking on one another, separating work from home, and having reassurance when it comes to being safe.
Okay, excellent. Good stuff. Appreciate it. A lot is resulting from the small group discussion. So last and certainly not least, and we're going to have group number 6, which was facilitated by Kelvin. Either Kelvin or someone else is going to report out.
Hi, Gwinnett. We started out with emphasizing more outside activity. Some of us have tended to stay inside, and we want to try and get out and just get some air, do something a little bit different outside of the 4 walls that we work in or live in. The other one was self-care, exercise, eating better, paying more attention to ourselves, if you will. We talked about looking at the idea of the money that we're saving through this issue by not being able to get out, and just taking note that there is some benefit to being inside. We talked meditating, doing a little bit more meditating, just doing more focus. Taking a break from the news was one that I think is just something that I have to do. The idea of remembering gratitude, I think, was a big positive, because with everything going on, it's really good to concentrate on what we do have versus what we don't. In regards to the group, we talked about teaching technology to those that are around us, particularly seniors, and giving them a little bit more confidence in using the technologies that are available. Sheena suggested also making testing available. We know that it's available in some spots throughout our community, but maybe a little bit more at some of the local churches. Another idea was being connected with the members within the respective churches, reaching out, doing a little bit better job about reaching out, creating self-help information so that to give people more confidence with the technologies that are going on. We talked about continued education. There are actually a few more educational opportunities out there, but making people more aware of them and allowing them to, or helping them to get connected with that. And then finally, a good one that I hadn't heard of, but Sheena made the suggestion of the drive-in that's in Newark, and I'm hoping she'll speak a little bit more on it, but she said that there's a drive-in in Newark that's available, and that may be an opportunity for us in our conference that I guess people can drive up and the program can be all on a screen. So I'm going to be definitely looking into that. But that was our list.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you for everyone who participated and shared. And certainly, one aspect that I hope we all recognize is this is just a starting point. And all that we've learned and gathered today, it behooves us to continue to take these practices, not only for ourselves, but to share them with those that we lead, our family, our faith-based communities, the community service that we're doing, and for those of us that are in professional arenas where it's necessary. But we have to all start with us. We have to be able to rebound, bounce back, have that continuity, be able to endure, but yet give ourselves space to also have those times where we need to kind of regroup and set aside to make sure we're well. So thank you, everyone. I'm going to turn it over now to Jessica, who's going to lead us through the rest of the segment. Prizes coming up. Prizes are on their way.
Thank you, Gwenera. Yes, prizes are next. I'm just gonna go back to sharing my screen. Do you see my screen? Just gonna put it back in slideshow mode. All right, so thank you so much for that great discussion. We're gonna try to compile what everyone said and then send that out through the email as well, so you have that as well. Just wanted to remind you, to inform you about our upcoming announcements. Tomorrow at 6 p.m. we have our bi-weekly Incorruptible Essex Youth Meeting. So this is a program for youth ages 13 to 18 living or in Essex County. If you're interested, you can contact me in order to sign up, or you can go on our Incorruptible Essex Facebook account. Also, we have our upcoming committee meetings. If you're interested in participating in any of these initiatives, we have our underage drinking committee on next Tuesday, August 4th. On next Thursday, August 6th, we have our prescription drugs committee. And then the following week, we have on the August 11th at 10 a.m. our Interfaith committee meeting. And that same day in the evening at 7 p.m., we have our new LGBTQ+ committee. We're inviting all new members to come and join us and find out what we are doing to spread awareness and reduce substance abuse in the community. Save the date for October 22nd, our Interfaith Symposium. All our upcoming events are posted on our Facebook events page at essex.adapt. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating and staying to the very end. I know we took a little bit longer, but I hope the information that you learned was something that is going to be useful and you know, for yourself and for the organization that you are working with or volunteering at. I just want to say a special thank you to our presenter, Phil McCabe, and the Rutgers Region 2 Public Health Training Center for providing this wonderful and much needed presentation. I also want to give a big shout out to our amazing Interfaith Committee members who volunteer their time and talent to plan and organize these events with us throughout the year. Thank you to our committee officers, Gwenera, Michael, and Demetricia, for taking extra time out of their busy schedules to provide leadership to the committee and meeting with me on extra occasions. And last but not least, I want to say thank you to our amazing ADAPT staff, Joelle, Julia, Christine, and Emmeline. Thank you all for supporting us, the committee, and doing a lot of the behind the scenes work putting together these events. You will all receive an email link with the evaluation link. So please, if you could submit that once you get that email. It is coming, it is a Rutgers evaluation, and I will give you some instructions on how to fill in. You have to fill in the instructor and things like that. You will also be receiving by email a certificate of attendance, also by Rutgers. And if there's any final questions, you know, you can ask them here right now, Otherwise, I want to say thank you. We want to hope you stay positive, safe, and healthy. And I hope you have a
Jessica,
great rest of the day and a great rest of the week. Yes.
Jessica, since I didn't get to do my last slide, I put up my email address. You'll get it in the handout that we give you. But I want to let you know, I appreciate you inviting me to be here. Any of your groups that would like me to come and speak to them, or arrange a presentation for them individually, we try to get groups usually about 15, 20 people. We can do up to 500 people. So if you're representing an organization, or if you partner with others in your community that want to come together, we can redo the presentation specifically to help you in your particular area. So, and it will be at no cost. We're not charging for this presentation. It's part of what our obligation is to the public to keep teaching about resiliency and what we can do during COVID-19. We have other presentations related to COVID-19. We have one on the use of rituals, and we have one on grief and losses. So again, I'll be happy to work with you individually with any of your particular groups to deliver the training for you. Thank you very much, and thank you for Jessica and everyone on the staff there and all the moderators who did an excellent job today. Sorry for the hiccup. That happens. My internet just hit a bleep and I lost my screen. So I'm glad it was at the time where most of the information was already out there. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you. And so I did put up, does everyone see the screen? I did put up Phil's contact information here. And as Phil has said, we'll also be sending this out through the email as well. So you'll have that. All right.
There is a question that was asked about a pre-recorded webinar. Yes, we do have them. If you contact me via email, I'll send you the links to them. I don't have them to put up on the screen right now, but we do have some pre-recorded webinars. The only thing is they were recorded in April and beginning of May, so they might be a little dated. That's why we don't, we can only use them for so long before we have to say some of the information might have needed to be updated, but we do have them and they are available. We have a YouTube channel at the School of Public Health.
We'll also be putting a recording of this webinar on Essex Adapt's YouTube channel as well, so you can see either or.